the May 15th, 2020 meeting of the Hidden Valley Board of Directors will come to order. We're going to start with members' time. There's a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. Anyone in the audience have a question or comment?
We would see that.
No, they're all muted, so.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
how
but they
can you
can,
unmute them?
they can electronically raise their hand. There's a button on each side.
Man, you just want to check chat just in case people are chatting.
Sure.
Okay, so we have no members' time.
Okay, very good.
In fact, if anyone would like to follow along with the board packet, it is posted on the website. You would find that if you went to the homeowner portal, work through ownership, association governance, through the Board of Directors meeting documents, then the Hidden Valley, there'll be a square that says Hidden Valley Association, and then you scroll down to the May 15th entry, which is today's link to the board packet, if you can get that.
That's a roadmap.
It is a roadmap, but it's
Okay. All right, then we'll call the meeting to order at 7:05. Roll call?
uh-oh, I don't have to record. Henley?
Here.
Pat McGrail?
Here.
John Newport?
Here.
Who else we got? John Eddy?
Here.
Bill Leisha?
Here.
Dave Fiola? And Bob Cole.
Here.
Present and council. We have our quorum.
Thanks, Dave. All right. Do I have a motion to set the agenda?
So moved.
I got, Eddie and Newport.
Okay.
Any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes of the April 18th board meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Eddie Kolar.
Bob Kohler has a motion and Eddie is a second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. I need a motion to acknowledge the electronic vote to approve the paving bid awarded to New Energy.
So moved. I'll second.
Kohler and Newport. Any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. I need a motion to acknowledge the electronic vote to approve the contract with Morton Building and to approve the down payment of $30,000.
Jay Eddy.
Second?
I second.
By Bill. Any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Treasurer's report.
Thank you, Pat. So I'm going to, as I typically do, cover the financial report and the Finance and Audit Committee reports. We'll start by looking at the Treasurer's Performance Dashboard, which is included in the packet of materials that are posted on the website. And I'll just go through some of the highlights So year to date, we're showing a $117,000 plus for the first 9 months of the year, going through March 31st. And there's really one reason for that, and that's because our snow removal expense was approximately $126,000 under budget due to the lower amount of snowfall we received this year. As I always point out, we did make our transfers to the Reserve Replacement Fund in accordance with our budget, which was based on the reserve study requirements. Our receivables at March 31st are the lowest I think they have been in a couple of years, and it reflects the efforts that we've been making there. They were down to $70,000 at the end of March. In the over 90-day category, there's one account that's 55% of the balance, and that's in its state, which I've mentioned before. We're in the process of working through that. It's going to take a little while to get that resolved. In the current economic environment, I'm now receiving weekly reports on our receivables. So I'm watching the payments that are coming in, as well as the delinquencies, and I'm not seeing any significant deterioration in the quality of our receivables. I'm going to continue to monitor that on a weekly basis. Our investment at the end of March stood at about $2,280,000, $2,080,000, and I've been watching that as well. I'm getting semi-monthly reports from our 2 investment managers, guys who did investments in Somerset Trust, and I've been looking at how are we doing compared to the end of the year. Our portfolio is down 3.4%, which of course many of you probably are following the market and watching your own investments. That's through last Friday. If you look at the Dow Jones through last Friday, from the end of the year, it was down 14%, and the S&P 500 was down 9%. So our at-risk securities, so our non-CDs, were down about 5.6%. So compared to the market, we seem to be doing okay. The market value of our securities is still in excess of cost by about 7%. So I think our investment policy, as well as our investment managers, continue to do a good job. In terms of the capital budget, we have spent through March 31st about $323,000 on a budget of about $730,000. So we've spent about 44%. The reason why we seem to be behind is because the budget included $250,000 for the Southbridge Center project, and through March 31st, we'd only spent $19,000, and that was primarily on design. On page 2 of the performance dashboard summarizes some more kind of non-financial numbers that I would like to talk about. In the major contract summary in the upcoming fiscal year, we have 2 contracts that are going to change. The security contract comes due at the end of November, so that's something we'll be starting to look at in early summer. And our management company contract actually expires on June 30th, and President McGrail has been working with First Service to negotiate a renewal for 1 year because we believe that we'll be moving away from First Service in the upcoming year. At the bottom of the performance dashboard are some other non-financial measures, and 1 or 2 that I would just like to call everybody's attention. The number of email subscribers inched up slightly from where we were last year, 976. And this is important. I would like to just encourage everyone, if you do not have an email account with the foundation, if we don't have your email address, and we would really like to get that, and if you can kind of spread the word of how we try to communicate with everyone. You know, the target would be to get 1 email for every household up here. Clearly, we probably have some implications. I don't think we're anywhere near where we want to be. So please spread the word and try to get folks to give us their email address. And then the last section there, as you know, for the last couple of years, I've been tracking the real estate sales, and we hadn't been doing too badly until roughly around March 19th, when the governor ordered that there would be no more real estate showings. Just saw Mike Nicholas. I was leaving my house tonight to come to the meeting, and effective today, the realtors are now allowed to show properties again. And he said, Bob, there's a lot of pent-up demand. He said they've already written up a couple of offers. So through April 30th, year to date, they sold 65 properties. At the same time last year was 68. So hopefully with a little bit of luck here, that'll pick back up again. And probably many of you probably get the mailings at home from Berkshire Hathaway. Number of properties listed for sale, 53, which is roughly 5% of the balance. And that's the lowest I've seen it in the time I've been tracking over the last couple of years. So a couple of other things I'll just mention. Since the last board meeting, I've been focused very heavily on budget preparation for the new fiscal year that begins on July 1, 2020. Talking about that later on this evening. and working with the finance committee, they met with me on Saturday, May 2nd. We went through the proposed budget and made some changes to them in response to their comments. And lastly, the audit committee has not met since the last meeting. They'll get busy again here in the early part of the summer.
Thank you, Bob. Mike, I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll move. I'll second.
Got it.
Okay, Duncan, report. Questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Give a report for us.
I do a brief update. Wanted to report to the board that, staff has prepared, our facilities to move into the phase yellow status, effective this coming Monday. We will have the appropriate signage put up, but just to kind of give everyone an overview, the no more than 2 folks allowed into the foundation office at a time. If you're sick or if you have a fever, please do not come in. You need to have a face mask. You'll notice when you come to the front desk, there is a splash guard mounted to Maddie's workspace. There are hand sanitizing stations throughout all of our buildings, and they are actively managed. I verified with the first service protocols that they had sent out and our own internal efforts. So we have the appropriate PPEs and are ready to begin the business as yellow beginning on Monday. Just a couple other updates. JML Landscaping has been making some reasonably decent efforts. There's a couple of problems that we ran into last week with the exorbitant amount of groundwater. So you may notice some tire tracks. As a disappointment, the Highlands condos, the weeding was not done at all, as well as some other beds that were mulched. JML staff failed to properly mitigate the growing weeds and grasses. Brian and I had a meeting with Osvaldo, who is their site supervisor. We brought these items to their attention. He assured us that they will have those deficiencies cured by this coming Friday in time for Memorial Day. I put JML on notice that this discussion was their one and only warning. And should the failures continue, we will invoke the agreed upon liquidated damages for each related item. We got some very good assurances with Osvaldo that he would step that up. I also was directed Brian and I to make additional surveys of the related tasks that we expect from JML real time, so we can be better prepped in case one of their employees fails to perform a task. We can at least hopefully be able to say back to the board that we are dealing with it on a faster basis. I want to close out one thing, and not to bring up anything gruesome, but in Facebook, that frog tragedy in the Summit Pond, by us posting on the Facebook site, we did reach out to the state herpetologist and biologist, and we found out that the tadpoles and frogs unfortunately perished because they were sucked through the waterfall pump. So I want to dispel any of the rather interesting comments on the Facebook site that it was parasites, chemical spills, and all that. It was just a very unfortunate event. Other than that, staff is ready to get back to some semblance of order and get business returning to a better tempo that we were developing at the beginning part of the year.
So all the staff be on site.
Starting Monday, correct. And if I could touch on that, Pat, as part of phase yellow, the back office will be closed to anyone except unless they have an appointment. The key procedure will remain essentially the same. We are not going to be giving out keys for any other purpose other than an emergency. That's to maintain some assuredness that we're not transmitting germs. And then, per the posting that was done on the website under the recent guidance from Pennsylvania, unfortunately, the foundation office being treated as a community center is not allowed to open for general public use until green.
Work in their offices, you'll work in your office, Maddie will work at the front desk, and Brian will be in here.
Brian will be primarily working at the Highland Center in his office and coming in here, working in the break room when his tasks require his presence.
Okay, I think, that's required.
Yes, I'll be the graphic office.
Okay. Any other questions?
The mitigation that you're talking about for the beds, was it did you say weeding?
Yes, unfortunately, in some of the beds that were recently mulched,
Yeah.
they didn't weed the beds before the mulching vendor sprayed the mulch on top.
Okay, all right.
So, Howard from the Highlands brought it to my attention. We went out and explored and we found multiple beds. And then in that exercise, we also saw that the weeding crew failed to weed other areas.
Okay.
So all of the areas that were missed, and including, in West Ridge, the center two buildings on the south side, the walk downs, the leaves weren't properly picked up, so the mulching crew sprayed the mulch on top of leaves. So all of those found effects were brought to his attention for curing by this coming Friday.
I know when they came by our house, they had like a screen or something that's.
Yes, they did put down a cream. Yeah. Oh, and if I can touch on one thing, we did get some fairly significant complaints about why on earth did the dandelions not get addressed this year. Unfortunately, with the excessive amount of rain, the pre-emergent unfortunately was washed away. We've asked JML to reapply, but the dandelions had already germinated. So, other than us applying cream again. It is fine and screened. I don't know, but I can find out.
I was worried how long will it last. I mean, if it's a 3 or 4, it won't last too long. And I don't know, in our contract, is it number 2? I think it's because of the nozzle of the output from the truck, so they blow it.
Right, it was long. Let me look and fall back.
I wanted to check on the contract on that.
Any other questions? But you should be able to tell us.
Yeah, you can either chat in, or there's a feature that they can like electronically read.
Okay, nothing seems to be changing there. Okay, township liaison report. We have a page, I see, is Chris Lindbergh there? Chris, if you can hear me, can you give us a report real briefly?
Oh, there you go.
There's a jet engine in the background keeps coming on. You guys keep cutting in and out. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Chris.
Okay. Yeah, I went to the meeting yesterday and sent you a written report. The PennDOT representative was there and went around with the township guys to talk about all the different places they're going to pave and he approved them all. So the township is now letting a bid, or writing a bid proposal to be let out to get contractors to bid on the paving that the township wants to do. So it's all in progress. Otherwise, there wasn't too much else, at least that concerns us, that went on at the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks for continuing to attend.
Sure, no trouble.
No reports from the project manager supervisor?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Maddie, any reports?
I think there's a page in there, but it's really not much to report on.
Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to the committee reports. Finance committee, Bob? Okay.
As is the audit committee.
As is the audit, okay. The ACC, we have a page on. Maintenance, Bob Myhall, it says verbal. Do you have anything from Bob?
Other than we had the meeting today and he was recommending, action on the Imperial number 2, but I believe that's further in the agenda.
Okay, very good. Rules and regs, we do have a page. Michelle Viola's committee's been hard at work on finalizing the hunting and firearm policies, as well as the outdoor fireplace and outdoor grill policy. And I believe those are in your packet. Social and Rec Committee, no report. We have a page from Ron Oldham and Jay with regard to the branding committee and the Hidden Valley Mountain Metric. Jay, did I see you up there? There you go.
Have a little trouble hearing you, Pat. Did you want me to give a report?
Yeah, I had, just so everybody is aware, I had been communicating with Jay earlier today. His committee has continued to meet for the mountain metric, even though the event has been canceled. But they have been discussing ideas for a different type of an event. So Jay, if you could just give us a brief report on that.
Yeah, like every other organized event in the region, we've canceled the metric. We didn't feel we could assure the safety of the riders, the volunteers, and the community. We are looking at an alternative bicycle event promoting Hidden Valley, the Laurel Highlands, and local businesses. This would not be anything at all like the metric. This would be simply promoting the bicycle routes that we have on ridewithgps.com to cyclists in the region and letting them come up and ride those routes at their leisure. We have a outline of a business plan that we'll be discussing at our meeting next week, and we'll be reporting on that at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And Jay, you're up next anyway. If you can give us an update on the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee.
Okay, everybody should have received a dashboard. Right now, items are colored either green, meaning that they're making progress, or yellow, meaning that progress hasn't started yet. In spite of the COVID-19 situation, there's a number of green blocks on the dashboard, so that's pretty good. Of particular note is Dennis Carroll's landscaping group and Chris Umble's leadership development team have really been doing quite a bit of work in spite of the situation. The next report would be in July, which would mark 6 months into the strategic plan. And I think at that time, anything that isn't making progress will be marking as red. And I'd be remiss if I didn't add that I did get a report from John Eddy after I submitted the dashboard. So the information on the safety components is inaccurate and has to be updated, which I will do and send in next week.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Jay, I guess either I can't hear, it might have been muffled. When, is it next month you plan on marking those where there's no activity as red? Is it for the June report?
July, we're reporting every 2 months. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Nominating and leadership development, I see Chris Humble up there.
I'm here, Pat.
Okay, Chris, I know you guys have been busy.
Yeah, particularly what you should have in your board packet is a report from our meetings of this month, and included in it are the plans that we have made for the recognition component of our agenda. Part of our activity is the recruiting of volunteers into various roles. Ultimately, our job is also to develop and help promote the evolution of new leadership at Hidden Valley. And so the recognition program is one of the ways in which we want to mentor and sustain volunteerism. So apart from that, if you have questions about our report or about our plans with respect to recognition, Lisa Borelli-Dorn is also on the call. She is a member of our committee, as is John McGrail, and we would be happy to answer any questions about those plans that we have for recognition.
Does the board have any questions? I don't know if you've had time to review this report. It's been a very active group. Yeah, and I think the ideas for volunteer recognition are particularly good.
Thank you. Well, credit to Lisa for. Lisa, I don't know if you want to make any comments. I think you're on the call. Well, perhaps not. Anyway, if you answer any questions, we're happy to do so.
Chris, I have a question. As part of and maybe it doesn't fit into the recognition aspect of it, but are you reaching out to the volunteers far and wide to find out what their thoughts are on improvements, things that might be going well and things that they might suggest as improvements going forward from a volunteer perspective?
Yes, that's ongoing. One of the things we're trying to do is involve various, I'll say, members of the volunteering community, some of whom are involved already with leadership, Dave, as chairpersons, others who are leading task groups, and volunteers in general. And one of the things you'll see about if you haven't had a chance, about the structure for the recognition program is that every member of the community, whether they're an active volunteer or not, has the opportunity to recognize and recommend for recognition volunteers who have been particularly active or particularly effective. So I think your question is one of inclusion, and we are definitely making steps, and consciously so, to include as many members as possible in the effort and to invite all of the input from all of the members in this process.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris?
There was a question. And to answer questions, or?
Well, I think it's a pool question. I think you have a section in the agenda to address it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
So for that, I can't see the name on the chat, but Steve, that topic will be discussed here in a little bit in the agenda. So thanks for the question.
Thank you.
All right. Having heard the reports of the committee, I have a motion to approve the committee report.
Jay Eddie?
I'll second.
Second by Bill. Any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. The other report, Bob has some news on the HVUF.
So a couple things are happening with Hidden Valley Utility Services. Next week, there is a hearing scheduled, it'll be a telephonic hearing, since all of the, state offices are closed. But the purpose of that hearing is to make a ruling on whether or not Hidden Valley Utility Services should be granted additional time to, complete the engineering work, et cetera. And this has been going on for now a year, so the hearing is literally a year late. Hidden Valley Utility Services tried to get an extension of time on that hearing, and I was pleased that about 4:30 this afternoon, I got notification from Judge Dunderdale that she had denied Hidden Valley Utility Services' request to extend next week's hearing date. So we are going to trial. So Tuesday, there is a pre-hearing for all the parties, and then on Wednesday, there will be an actual hearing to discuss whether or not Hidden Valley Utility Services had missed their deadline. They're challenging whether or not the one-year deadline they had to complete things was actually appropriate. Also, kind of going on, as many of you know, Hidden Valley Utility Services applied for a permit to put in place a filtration system. That permit came from the Department of Environmental Protection. They did receive that. They have gone out to bid. They have received, I can speak for sure, as I did talk to the contractor, they've received at least one bid to construct the building, and possibly a second bid. They are now waiting for, they need one more permit, I believe, that comes from Somerset County before they can commence any construction. And then, of course, they need to choose a contractor to do the work. So there's really kind of two things going on, right? Hidden Valley Utility Services is trying to put a filtration plant in, while at the same time, the Office of Consumer Advocate, right, are pulling the utility in front of the PUC to say, wait a minute, these guys are not following what the commission ordered them to do. So there's really kind of two competing things going on. So stay tuned. The hearing ends on Wednesday. The judge will probably, at least in her motion today, she really had some strong wording in favor of the homeowners, basically saying the homeowners have waited long enough. So I think we'll see an expedited ruling from her.
It certainly sounds that way, that's good news.
So is that you, Bob? You're gonna be on the phone?
I will be, yes. Be myself and the OCA, the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, and there is one other homeowner who did join the suit late, Sharon Howard Friel, who has participated in the last couple of calls.
Is that where, that rolling?
Probably, Bill, yes, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
It could drag on.
Bob, I have a question. You've reviewed all of his financial statements going back probably 6 or 8 years. Where is he going to get the money to put in this new plant and filtration system?
Well, that's an interesting question, John. He's been asked that several times in the testimony that's been submitted as part of the hearing. He has refused to answer that question. He just outright, flat out won't answer it. And his attorneys have argued that it's not appropriate. That's not the issue at hand. But the Office of Consumer Advocate and myself and all of our filings, we have said that is the issue. We can't see how this is going to be done unless there is financing.
It's frightening.
It's not going to be an inexpensive undertaking. And there are multiple pieces to this. So it's not just putting in the filtration system, right? That's step one. Once that is done, the tank has to be cleaned because there is manganese sediment on that tank.
Yeah.
That has to be cleaned. Once that is cleaned, then the distribution lines have to be flushed and cleaned. Because otherwise, we're just going to be putting clean water into dirty water lines and sending it all over the mountain. So there's really kind of 3 pieces that have to be accomplished here. So it could take 3 to 6 months to build a filtration system. Obviously, you're not going to do any cleaning and painting in the tank in the middle of winter. So that would be delayed in spring.
More importantly, where's he gonna, if he's gotta clean the tank, where's the water gonna come from?
Well, yeah, how do you flush that?
Yeah.
Where does that go? Right, so there's a number of issues related to this.
Well, he was supposed to have painted the tank 2 years ago, as I recall.
Right.
I'm sorry, Dave.
I think everybody has a copy of the security incident report in their package. Do we have anything additional from Jefferson Township?
The one other question was, we had asked, what is the status of the return of the quick response squad, the QRS? Unfortunately, and thanks to Chris for getting the data, no budget is available to bring that service back. So,
Okay, but we know that now.
Yes.
yeah, the secretary is very kind to confirm that.
Okay. Recycling update. John, do you want to handle that?
I cannot handle it politically, unfortunately. What we saw last week was an abuse of the intent of that, recycling amenity. Again, this week, we're seeing a lot of good compliance, but then we're also seeing tires and, it was picked up today and it's half full again. We've been getting, I have done some dumpster diving to try to see if we can find who might the offenders be and not anything of certainty. And again, you know, thanks to Jay and Sarah for helping out and all those other homeowners that helped out, but, it's not good enough, unfortunately. I think the only solution would be, is if the board wants to keep it, would be to increase the pickup frequency of that weekly.
I know we talked about doing that and building some additional pickups into the budget, but we didn't build in every week.
No, I built in for Memorial Day, Labor Day, and during like Christmas week and March 31st ski season, but contingent upon better compliance.
Right.
If people aren't complying, then we're really, you know, that will cost us $12,000 a year. Right now, it costs us about $8,000 a year for recycling. So without better compliance, we're really spending money that we could utilize somewhere else. So I think we really I would say experiment with it. Let's see what happens in July and August. Let's go to the weekly pickup. But if we don't see better compliance, then we should just stop it. As much as and I'm an adamant recycler, I think that's a huge step backward for us as a community. But I think we do have to look at what we're spending money on, and that could be reallocated somewhere else.
I think the board has talked about, letting this go for the summer.
Right.
We're gonna try it for 3 more months. Dave is talking about it in the weekly communication, and we'll continue to add information about recycling on the website. There's really no non-compliance here. We need to be able to recycle up here. I don't mean to sound like a school marm, but I don't think there's really any reason we can't comply as a community. I think everybody believes in recycling, or most do, and if we're gonna have that amenity, then we're gonna have to follow the rules. So I really do, once again, ask everybody's cooperation. Okay, okay.
So salt dome update. Many of you know that we currently have a salt dome that we utilize to store our salt. It's located on Gardner Road. It's on the right-hand side as you're heading towards Bakersfield past the golf course. We do not own that property. We lease that property from the resort for $1 a year. And then we jointly buy salt, and the resort reimburses us for that salt. We believe that probably sometime here in the next year or two, the resort is going to probably indicate to us that they no longer want to lease that space to us. So we've got to make an alternate plan for it. So we have purchased a lot on Gardner Road, a little bit further down from where the existing salt dome is. It's on the left-hand side. It's approximately 1.5 acres. It is all wooded. So in tonight's capital budget that the board will be looking at to approve, money is included in there to do an initial site plan and to do some grading work and to cut in an access road where we could ultimately locate a salt storage facility there so that we will be able to take care of our roads here in salt dome. So that, within the capital budget is $80,000 to do that. That would just get the site plan and do the initial work, some grading work to put in an access road. We would then need further grading to be done, and we would then need the salt dome itself. So we have some expenses ahead of us, so we're trying to do some of it in fiscal '21 and then some of it in fiscal '22. I think the resort will work with us to give us the amount of time that we need, but we feel pretty confident that they're going to tell us we need an exit strategy, we need to get off the property.
In that regard, we have received a proposal from Gibson Thomas to provide engineering services with regard to that site development. So, John, I don't know if that's been circulated to the board, but let's do that.
Well, the reason I had not is, looking at the initial price, which was above our estimate, I reached out to two equally competent firms. Those proposals are expected this week, and my thought is to present all three options for the board.
Okay.
That way you can weigh the benefits, and know that we're getting the best value.
Okay. All right. I have one more issue on the salt dome. And I would ask if it's possible for John and Doug, because I know you've been involved with the salt dome from the beginning. I think we need to schedule a meeting with the neighbors. I think it's really important, and if anybody else wants to be involved in that, maybe John Eddy, because he knows them, and it's gonna help in this instance to know them. But I think they've been good neighbors to Hidden Valley, and I think it's only fair that we bring them into the loop on what our plans are. They may have some great suggestions, they're very familiar with that area, and so before we go too much further, let's sit down and talk to the people who are good for neighbors down there.
Absolutely.
Property. And we're gonna have those drainage and sure, do not, cause a problem for the neighbor.
Okay, anything else? Well done. Okay, on to new business. We've received, an email or letter, from Sarah Gray, asking us to accept her resignation from the Architectural Control Committee. Certainly, we would do that with regret. Do I have a motion to accept Sarah's resignation from the ACC?
I'll make that motion.
It's not acceptable.
And this is John Eddy.
Well, no, yeah, just a second.
Any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
With great reluctance.
Yes, absolutely. That's a tough,
Gratitude.
thankless job.
Gratitude.
You know what? I think I'm gonna add, under, this is new business, we need to address the issue of the pool. It didn't make it under reports, on the agenda. So, I.
13.1A, or you wanna put it 13.6? Well, we can't do 13.6, we gotta do an A, B, or C.
13.1A.
Okay.
13.1A. I'm not sure why I put it right there, but that's what I did.
Okay.
Hey, you got that? 13.1.A.
Point A.
Okay. I know that, everybody in the community is wondering how and if we're going to move forward with the opening of the swimming pools this year. This is obviously a very difficult decision because, well, for a number of reasons. I can tell you that we are trying to follow the guidance provided by the state with regard to swimming pools. I think everybody's situation, not just Hidden Valley's situation, but everybody's situation is complicated by the fact that we rely on young people to act as our lifeguards. Those lifeguards are moving on to try to get other jobs because no one is sure whether or not the pools are going to be open this year. John, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I would be happy to. This week on the 12th, we received from the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society, that is the consultant group for all of the municipal parks. And I know Dave included within part of that within the weekly update. But the short answer is we would not be allowed to open our pools until we reach the green phase. And even with the green phase, it would be limited to 25 users at any one time. The guidelines would dictate roughly a 10 by 10 area per user, roughly 100 square feet. They would also require staff or the pool management to make sure that all users have PPEs when they're outside the pool. There could be no food service, at least from the initial guidance that we saw. And since we have no idea scientifically or politically when green phase may arrive, even if, let's say hypothetically, the governor said August 1st is fine, the next mountain decline would be, where do you find lifeguards at that point? Get them on board and get the pool open and get functional. So we really have two hurdles. The pools, we must be in the green phase first, and then we could entertain opening the pools. The struggle would be finding the lifeguard staff sufficiently there. I can also add, many of our facilities also, like this building, this room in particular, any community center can only operate once you're at green. Now, this meeting, business meeting, and the board's treated differently, this is permissible, but unfortunately, unless the governor or the Parks Division decides to change its guidance, I don't foresee any viable way of having the pools open this year, I have to say.
Comment?
Policy is closed until further notice.
Yeah, close until further.
And I think that's what we want to emphasize. The pools are closed until further notice. If the situation should change, the status of the pools may change. So we will keep everybody posted on that.
I think we're being consistent as well. I heard driving up tonight, the city of Pittsburgh announced that their pools are not going to open yet. They haven't canceled it for the whole season, but they said as of right now, yeah, very important. Great event.
There are a lot of channels that we're receiving information from. So
Right.
The one that you had mentioned, the
Recreation Parks,
Society.
yes.
Yep. Is one. I also have some from the Country Club Managers Professional Society that has a whole list of things that they're recommending and so on. So we are reaching out and trying to get as much information as we can as far as guidance goes, not just one source, but many sources. And but I think John pretty much hit it on the head with regards to the labor issue. And we've ruled out any operation without lifeguards for a lot of very, very good reasons. So we have to have one. And I believe a full complement, Maddie, is 18 lifeguards. Is that right? Something along those lines?
For
That's
both.
what we strive for.
We try to get 18. That's for both pools for the whole summer. So, have as much information as we have, and we've done all we can. I think physically, though, from a physical standpoint, our staff can get it's about 2 weeks, I think, is what I've heard.
Correct. 2 weeks plus a week to heat.
Plus a week to heat.
Right.
Some information coming, we could jump on that.
Absolutely.
It's really the other,
Well, and that's, yeah,
the
because we
green,
gotta,
yellow,
Right.
and the labor, that's the
I
problem.
think we received a week's notice before, like we knew today was coming a week ago, right? So if we anticipate that from green, going from yellow to green,
Make it happen for you.
yeah.
So best decision here right now, follow the weekly updates that you're currently getting from the foundation. Any update with regard to the pool, up or down, will be reported in the weekly update. Okay?
Pat, Steve's question is, open color, and it moves to green.
It's gonna go anyway.
Because of the social distancing guidelines, we moved to the green space underneath that restricts the full access just to homeowners, rather than allowing renters.
To be determined.
I think absolutely, that is absolutely an issue that I think we would discuss if we can get to the point where we can be open. Given the fact that even if we're able to open, we would only be able to, we would have to limit the number of people using it. That may be,
Lottery, do all kinds of things. We're not prepared to do that or make any decision tonight.
but certainly, Steve, we're gonna be considering that suggestion. Okay, if there's nothing else from anybody, John?
No.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the Southbridge Center building project. Bob, I think you had some initial comments?
Yeah, I can do that. So at, last Saturday's, public meeting on the budget, I did talk a little bit about the Southbridge Center project. For those of you that were on that call, this might sound a little redundant, but just to bring everyone up to speed on where we are with that. You may recall this has probably been about a 2-year effort now to, address a couple of issues that we have here. One, our snack shack does not meet state regulations for a food facility. It's a great amenity, people love it, but it doesn't meet state code. And we also currently do not have any rinse showers for the pool. So in the fiscal budget for this year, the board has approved a budget of $250,000 to complete the project to address those issues. We did retain an engineering firm, many of you have heard of Eve, local firm, to design plans and to actually handle the bid process for us. They did an overall design that incorporated meeting the various compliance requirements, and then also provided in that design for some additional storage that we desperately need here at the building. Requests for proposals were sent to 6 different firms, and we actually did receive 3 bids. And the bids we received were in order of highest to lowest: $409,218, $398,600, and the low bid was $329,450. Probably goes without saying that all of us on the board at the time the bids came in were quite shocked at the size of them.
Square footage.
And for a 1,275 square foot building, Doug had gone out and done a little research on what the costs were, and the cost per square foot were quite in excess of the national norm he had done some research on. We then visited with the low bidder, asked them if they would go back, sharpen up their pencil. So remember, they were at $329,000, they brought their bid back to $310,000. At that point, the board said, wait a minute, time out, we're gonna revisit the entire project. So, a small task force of board members looked at this, and credit to my fellow board member, Bill Leisha, who finally introduced us to a group called Morton Builders, and at the February 20 board meeting, we introduced a revised concept that would change the location, moving it to this side of the building, and I'm pointing to where the children's pool is, et cetera. And that would address the compliance issues and add some gathering space as well as some much needed storage. So I'll turn it over to Pat. I'll talk about where we're going here.
And you may have heard, in the first part of the meeting that the board, ratified the execution of the contract with Morton Builders and authorized, the issuance of a down payment. That down payment will enable us to obtain design, drawings, and elevations for this proposed project. And in order to drill down and find out exactly what our proposed new concept will cost, we need those drawings. Our intention is to have Morton Building construct the building itself, the shell, and we will then do a build-out of the various parts of the building so that it's basically customized on the inside based on what we need and what we foresee our needs to be. We will, once we have the drawing and that information, obtain bids from all the subcontractors and compare those. And it is only then, once we have all of the components costs, that we would make a final decision on moving forward with the project, maybe determine whether or not the project needs to be modified, or maybe even determine that the project, may extend over, more than just a one-year period. I will say this, you know, the board has really worked very, very hard on this particular project. I think everybody is aware that, that we have many activities that are planned for this particular location, and very often there is an overflow situation, so that if it's raining out, we just have to shut down the event. What we're hoping to do is have a building at the lowest possible cost that will enable us to have a larger space, sufficient space for those types of gatherings, sufficient space for the, you know, weekend yoga classes, parties, anything else that would be necessary, in addition to having an appropriate snack area for the pool and the rinse showers and bathrooms. So, you know, by now, we had really hoped to have a final plan and elevation so that we could post them for everyone to see. We're not there yet because we're moving cautiously because of the costs that are involved. And of course, with the onset of the coronavirus, we've been delayed dealing with outside contractors and subcontractors as well. So we wanted the community to know this project is moving forward, albeit slowly. And each month at our meeting, we hope to provide more updated information on the project. So stay tuned. Any additional?
Well said.
How do you understand that there is an out clause in the contract?
Oh, yeah. John Sabo and I, early on, you know, we're obviously need the design and need to know, you know, what these subcontractors are going to be bidding on. But we were also concerned that we would have the ability to jump out of the contract in the event that these costs came in too high. There is an escape clause, thanks Bob for reminding me to mention it, so that we're protected if these costs just come in too high. You know, good news, bad news, I think we may benefit from what has happened here in the last couple of months. I think contractors are anxious to get to work, and so we're hoping for good prices on the subcontract. So, no other comments? We'll move on. We have some new policies to approve. I need a motion to approve the firearms, weapons, and fireworks policy. I guess I probably ought to take them separately. They are here all together.
Do you want to split these down?
Yeah, we're gonna split them. 13.5 would be, 13.3 will be the firearms, weapons, and fireworks policy. Do I have a motion?
It's actually the hunting fireworks, weapons, and fireworks policy, just to clarify.
There is a reason. Hunting policy. Hunting firearms, weapons, and fireworks policy. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay. Okay. For a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yeah.
C, hunting recreational trapping on all common and private property within Hidden Valley Foundation community is prohibited. It's already addressed in the state guidelines of planting with 150 feet of property.
Yeah.
It's redundant, that really should not be in there.
Does it hurt to include it? Contradict.
It does not contradict. Does not contradict.
When I sit as an ex officio on the committee, can I explain what the committee's motive was behind that? Because in the past, there were several situations behind BT of people unknowingly walking into Hidden Valley hunting. So there were 3 or 4 instances that the committee could recall in recent past where people were hunting in their backyard. So they felt very strongly to make sure it was clear to every new owner, new resident that hunting is not everyone views the hunting as thoroughly common.
Well, then they shouldn't have hunting licenses. I'm sorry, that's your responsibility, knowing where you are and what you're doing.
I agree, I'm just sharing what the committee, explained as to why they felt inclusion was important.
And this is going in, we have to remember the context, right? So this is going into a new homeowner packet that in theory they're gonna read through. And while redundant, it is maybe addressing a specific issue that we want new homeowners to know, so that maybe the crowd is a little different, the audience is a little different than the state, right?
Is prohibited as based on Pennsylvania state law, whatever that is, needs to be added to that. That's,
Are you talking about C?
yes, I am.
John, say it as you would like to.
No, hold on.
Hurry up.
Yeah, you would say that. Okay, I gotta come back to this. I have that policy within the state. All I'm asking is, if we're gonna put that in there, yes, it's not redundant. I'm gonna add though, as referred to,
How about in accordance with?
yes, in accordance with.
John,
Or C, the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so Dave, that, C will be modified, hunting and recreational trapping on all common and private property within the Hidden Valley Foundation community is prohibited in accordance with Pennsylvania state law, or with the laws of Commonwealth.
Pennsylvania state hunting regulations.
Okay,
yeah. Once more for the recording. So we have it.
okay,
Yeah.
hunting and traffic on all common and private property within the Hidden Valley Foundation community is prohibited in accordance with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania
State hunting regulations.
hunting regulations. Okay. We have a vote, do you agree with that change? Because you made the motion.
Yes, so, agree with the,
Addition,
with as modified, right?
Bob, can you look at that change? Okay, any further questions?
Still gonna hunt down hot dogs.
If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
The way the agenda is written, Pat, is 13, 3, 4, and 5, but I only have one motion.
I know, I think they need to be separate.
Separate motions, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
They got them separate.
Okay.
We want to do 13.5 and 13.5.1.
I think it's three, right?
That was 13.3.
Right,
Now we need to look at 13.4.
right, and we need a motion to approve the outdoor fire policy. It's 13.4.
I'll make that motion to approve the outdoor fire policy.
Bob?
I'll second. John, then, Newport.
Thanks, John. Any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 13.5, Dave. A motion to approve the outdoor grill policy. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. We need a motion to approve the 2021 operating budget as presented by Bob Kohler, treasurer, last Saturday.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got Eddie and Newport.
Eddie and Newport. Any questions on the motion?
I have one question. This budget includes keeping for a service, right?
It does.
And at the reduced rate of $60,000. Current contract is $71,500.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Any other questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Let the record show that Doug Henley and Bill Leisha opposed. Motion carries. I need a motion to approve the 2021 capital budget.
Motion.
Motion by John Eddie, second by John Newport. Questions on the motion?
I have one question is, I feel like the capital budget's incomplete because we don't have a price on the building, okay? That's the only question I have.
So what we would do in that case, Bill, is tonight we would approve the proposed capital budget. So tonight what we would do is we would approve the proposed capital budget. If and when we get further information on the Southridge Center project, we would then go back in and amend the project, the capital budget, in order to take that into consideration. Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So the capital budget for tonight includes everything that we talked about before, except for the Southridge Center project. Because we really don't know, and for all the reasons Pat talked about, we need to know the total costs, right, the current economic environment, et cetera. Before we move forward with that, we really need to have a good idea of what it's going to cost.
On most of the items, we don't know the exact cost. They're essentially best guesses based on past practices.
Correct.
You know, the paving, the culverts, all that.
The proposed capital budget has the road resurfacing of $120,000, Southridge Center fencing of $10,000, timber retaining wall replacement of $22,500. The Imperial Bridge project at maximum, which we're gonna talk about in a minute, but in the budget, there's $135,000 for it. The Gardner Road lot project of $80,000, get started on the Ridgeview Road drainage project, $10,000 for engineering. Small tools and equipment of $2,000, pool chemical controls of $10,000 to help, with both of the pools and automate the chlorination and treatment process, and $15,000 for contingency, so a total proposed capital budget of $404,500.
Gotcha.
Any other questions about the capital budget? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, the next item is consideration of the Phase 2 Imperial Road Drainage Project, bid document, and, John Sabo. Thank you. John Sabo, could you speak to this?
Yes, Madam President. Before the board considers acting upon that, roughly what this is the phase 2 of the drainage, and it's comprised of 3 parts. You have a base amount, which would be the upper half, and then you have option A and option B. And roughly option A is an open culvert drain that would run adjacent to the road, very similar to the way it was back in the old Hidden Valley days. And option B is the method of a closed culvert, which is a closed pipe. That method is recommended by the maintenance committee and management, but in total, it's roughly estimated $135,000. And what acting upon this would do would be approve management going to bid. But I would like the board to consider waiting on this so we can do some further due diligence on the Seven Springs property and make certain that all of our environmental T's and I's are crossed.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to table.
Please.
Motion to table this until we have further information from the resort.
I'll second.
Question?
But we need a second.
Second.
Someone, okay, now, John Eddie.
Does this have any impact on us, our ability to put this out for RFPs, out for bid? I understand what we talked about, John, and you know where I'm coming from on this, but are we preventing us from putting something out there to get a realistic bid on what we are looking at?
I see where you're coming from.
I'm not willing to vote on the monetary right now. I don't want to stop this project because we're already starting part A. Phase one. I'm all for getting it out there and see what we have coming back in. And along with that, moving along with the environmental stuff.
In parallel.
Yes.
That would be the better course for, well, if you need a reason, we will most likely be able to achieve a better bid price if we continue with Part A and Part B, versus splitting it and then going back out to bid. So under that context, it would make sense to proceed to bid. It does not oblige the board to
Correct.
proceed to the project.
But I want to see the bid out there so that we've got something here concrete that we can make an intelligent decision about to move along.
That, I wish, then with that being said, I would ask the board to reconsider its table and under this context, move to authorize the seeking of the bids to give you the data necessary for the
And at
next
the
step.
same time, parallel with,
And then direct management to seek the necessary clearances and cooperative agreements to proceed in the event the board decides to award the project.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So the way the request for proposal is written, could this change based upon our discussions with the resort? This has one proposed approach, I assume.
That is correct.
So discussions with the resort could change potentially.
sure
the way
could.
this is written.
But at least we've got stuff out there, Bob, that, let's just say it does change. Then we'll deal with it. I don't want to see this stopped.
I agree, John. Those folks have waited a long time
Yeah,
down
so
there.
let's get the RFPs out, let's see what we've got, and if we have to modify, then we'll modify based on discussions with that and along with the environmental component.
Sure. And then that modification would come back to the board as a change order for consideration under its own merits.
It's best to proceed in parallel on this. We've been talking about this for years. We've already paid for the study for
Correct.
phase two. CME is prepared to put out the bid packages. We need to proceed, get the RFP out and see what the real cost is. At the same time then, you know, a few of us meet with Seven Springs and we see what the real lay of the land is.
Okay,
But that shouldn't stop proceeding with the bid package and the RFP.
Madam President, I withdraw my motion to table.
and John Newport, do you rescind your second on that motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so, we have, Bob has withdrawn his motion to table and John Newport has withdrawn. So we're going to consider a motion to approve the Imperial Road Drainage Phase 2 project bid.
I will make that motion.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Doug, second by John Eddie. Any questions now?
Yes, adding to this,
Adding to this?
parallel discussions with Seven Springs, parallel discussions with DEP on the environmental component, all will be incorporated in what comes back with it. So I don't know how we do this as far as a motion.
I don't think that
Or
needs to
can
be
we-
in the motion. We know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
We don't need to make a motion to meet with them.
Okay, fine.
Okay? Because we absolutely are going to.
Okay.
And a point of order, if I may,
Yeah.
we would ask the board to direct option B as in Baker. That's the culvert,
Correct.
the preferred methodology. Option B.
Yes, we're not narrowing the roads.
Okay, phase 2, option B.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the more complete approach, as I understand.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for
And
that
that is-
clarification.
Thank you.
Option B was the one that the bid considered.
Yes.
At one
A isn't even in.
We had to give you A because it's your right to make the changed.
Right, but it's not even in the RFP,
No,
is what I'm asking.
correct, only he is a baker, the Band-Aid.
Okay, very good. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? So ordered. Next item, we need a motion to approve the committee application for Wendy Clayton Gonzalez for the Branding and Marketing Committee.
So moved.
Second,
Jay Eddie?
any questions on the motion?
I read, I still thought, well,
I'm sorry.
again, I still thought Ron Alden was the chair, but it looks like in the paperwork that she has agreed to co-chair with, Ben Phillips, my old neighbor, Ben Phillips.
Okay,
So does that,
That's correct.
okay.
that's no problem.
So is Ron still part of the committee? Did we get a,
Well, I can answer all that.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
but yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the application from Wendy Gonzalez for Branding and Marketing. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So ordered. Our next meeting date is Saturday, June 20th. That's a lot of 20. June 20th, 2020, at 9 a.m. Anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? If not, I did want to thank everybody for participating. I know this is less than ideal, but we appreciate your participation and keep those questions coming. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Jay Eddie?
Second, yeah.
Okay, I have a procedural question for Dave. Did we approve the committee reports?
Yeah.
Yes, John Eddie was the motion, Lisa was the second, and carried unanimously.
Okay, I missed it. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
8:20?
Yep, 8:20.
Wow.
Well done, Ron.
Covered a lot tonight.
You did.